it is important to understand not just the whole context of the Palestine deception within the Black community, try to use the Black community, but why? There's a spiritual component, which is why we're here. What does God say through the prophets of Israel where Africa is concerned? This goes beyond the Genesis 12:3, bless those who bless you, curse those who curse, praying for the peace of Jerusalem, Psalm 122. When it comes to this Africa part, princes shall come out of Egypt, Ethiopia shall soon stretch out her hands to God. So a couple of things you need to know about this text. Number one, Hebrew word for Egypt and Ethiopia would be Misraim and Cush, right, which would be the biblical terms used for the descendants of Ham back in Genesis chapter 10. Noah and his 3 sons, and then their sons, how they repopulated the earth after the flood, whom the Bible refers to as the land of Ham. When they say the land of Ham, they would talk about Egypt as the land of Ham. And they would often talk about them in terms of dual kingdoms or connected areas. So these are the progenitors of what we would today known as Africa, right? There's the word Africa, again, it's not in the Bible, but here, what the Bible calls the land of Ham, it's referring to the land of the descendants of Ham, his sons, principally Egypt and Ethiopia. Princes there is Hashmanim. Hashmanim is a Hebrew word which means gift bringer. Gift bringers shall come out of Africa. Fast forward a few years, David's son Solomon, he is now king, and this is how First Kings opens up. Again, this is years later. When the Queen of Sheba heard the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to prove him with hard questions. This is who the Ethiopians call Makeda. The Ethiopians have a tradition about this very same story, and they say that this is the Queen Makeda who went and visited and saw Jerusalem, and actually she and Solomon had a romantic relationship, conceived a son, and who became part of the royalty of Ethiopia in verse 2, and she came to Jerusalem with a very great train, caravan, with camels that bear spices and very much gold and precious stones. And when she was coming to Solomon, she communed with him with all that was in her heart. The gift shall be brought to, he means Zion. Why do I say he means Zion? Because he's talking from Jerusalem. Princes shall come out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall soon stretch her hands to God. If a head of state comes to visit, he goes and she goes to visit the person who's the head of state of the country they're coming to, which would be Jerusalem, undivided, eternal capital of Israel. And then she goes on and says, God loves Israel forever. She declares out of like a Genesis 12:3, here this African queen comes and stands in Jerusalem and declares that here's the proof. God loves Israel forever. Here's proof, Solomon, because he's made you king. So she, as a foreign dignitary, comes and stands in the holy city and does what no other foreign nation does in the entire Bible. Comes, brings gifts, and then says, wow, God really loves Israel. It's prophesied, and then a partial fulfillment of it actually takes place, right? And I say partial fulfillment because on the Christian part of it here, Jesus, now 1,000 years after the visit of the Queen of Sheba, Makeda, to Jerusalem, he references the same visit. And he does it matter-of-factly. He says, Jesus says, the Queen of the South shall rise up in the judgment with this generation and shall condemn it, for she came from the uttermost parts of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and behold, a greater than Solomon is here. This is Jesus declaring that he's the Messiah. The point that's being made here is that the Queen of Sheba recognized that there was something happening in Jerusalem that she had to investigate. Jesus points to Makeda's example and says, just like that African queen came all the way from Ethiopia to see Solomon in Jerusalem, her example testifies to the fact that she saw, and now she will condemn those who don't come and see the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That's what he's talking about here. He's saying that Africa showed you what to do when the king is in Jerusalem. She stands as a judgment, a barometer for those and how they come to Jerusalem, how the nations come to Zion. Jesus himself points back to the Queen of Sheba visiting Solomon, and he then, we use the word prophetic, for those of us in the Christian faith, he then places the prophetic squarely in the New Testament, and he says, not only was that an amazing thing, not only was that something very magnanimous, a very wealthy queen comes to visit, he says it goes beyond that. Here's part of the prophetic of it. She was actually demonstrating how the nations are to come when the king is in Zion. Part of the reason for the title here being Africa's prophetic call to Zion is rooted not just in here, but it starts here. Over the last several years, I've had a couple of Orthodox Jewish men whom this Africa part of it has been very, very crucial. It has been very much on their minds to the point where they've been like going, okay, I don't really know why. And so when they saw, they said, well, you're a Black American, so it makes more sense for you guys to kind of chuckle. I said, yeah, I have a passion for everything. But what I was told, both of them, the rabbis and the people I've talked to, is that that's because there's something that God is doing that he's uncovering. There is a prophetic relationship between Africa and Israel that has to do with the redemption. There is a highway that Africa is to build to Zion, and this is part of what's being revealed when the Queen of Sheba comes and visits Solomon. And then for us as Christians, Jesus references that same story. The African call to Zion. It's a thread that starts in the Tanakh and goes through to the New Testament.
Truth to Power Live with Dumisani Washington.